I'm happy to introduce you to Abby. Abby Oulton is one of the co-founders, actually, of the Agile Learning Centers in the network, the big network of centers, and also the Agile Learning Center in New York, and a great facilitator. So I leave you in very good hands.
Thanks, Lily. Hello, everybody. I'm Abby Oulton. I'm typically based in New York City, but I'm joining you today from Denver, Colorado. And I'm joining as a facilitator at the First Agile Learning Center in Harlem, but also as a board member for the Agile Learning Centers Network, because we're very excited about the Agile for Collaboration project and about this webinar series. So sorry, the cat's going to be loud. Thank you to everybody who put it together. And I'm really excited to see what you all create in this space. You're going to hear more from Lily today and then other speakers in the future about Agile learning in Europe. And I have a lot of questions about what that's going to look like. It's been interesting to watch the network grow and see kind of the unique opportunities and challenges in each region. And Europe is particularly fascinating because of some of the challenges with the different legal restrictions and not language barriers, like you all seem to work around those, but it does make the flow of information or the spread of information slower. And there's a lot of like funding opportunities and interest in collaboration, kind of more so than I've seen in the US. So for me personally, it's really exciting and interesting to see like, what you all get up to. The piece I want to share about is just a little bit of history and context about the Agile Learning Centers network and the school that I run. So the Agile Learning Centers network is a voluntary web of independent centers. And it started out 8 years ago with the idea that most of those centers would be K through 12 schools. The reality has been that some of them are schools, like the center I run in New York City is formally, officially a school, but there's a lot of projects that are after school programs or informal. There's co-ops, there's groups of families, there's some online groups, and then there's other groups that don't have a formal structure and kind of just adapt with their communities and around whatever kind of the legal constraints are in their region. So the network's goal, given that reality, isn't to kind of tell everybody what to do and how to do Agile learning. Our goal is to make sure that we're putting out clear kind of principles and a clear philosophy. And as research emerges on learning and ways that either what we're doing supports young people's development or where like we can adapt what we're doing to better support their development, like we want to disseminate that information. And we collect financial resources through membership dues, sometimes fundraisers, sometimes trainings, and we disseminate those to other projects. So we've got a lot of projects right now in Latin America that are planning a big kind of collective professional development event in a few weeks. And so we've been moving, as the network nonprofit, we've been moving money from the US down to support their effort, and we'll do that for other regions, as people request it. So that's that entity. And it came from the first Agile Learning Center, which was in East Harlem, is in East Harlem. We're 10 years old this year. And that school started out as a democratic free school called the Manhattan Free School. And it was run by some really incredible people. This is me assuming folks are familiar with democratic free schools, but if you're not, there's a Q&A session, and so you can ask more then. So that school was run by incredible people with really big hearts who were really good with the young people, but weren't great at keeping things like stable for the school, like they were accepting tuition payment in the form of like loans of instruments and cases of mineral water. So after about 6 years, their staff burned out and they went to close, but one of the parents decided it wasn't an option. And so she rallied other people and they got together and looked at what are the things that really worked about being a democratic free school and what are the things that weren't working and they needed to change. And this was around the same time that Agile management was very popular in software, and people were starting to think about other applications of this kind of social technology and framework. And so in 2013, my school reopened. I joined the project. We reopened as the Agile Learning Center. And we didn't know that in 2023, there would be over 170 Agile Learning Centers. Maybe if we had known, we would have picked a slightly more unique name, but here we are. And that project has, in the first year, we shared a lot about what we were doing. Other projects copied, and that's pretty much what we've been doing ever since, is sharing and collaborating. So the early years were a lot of collaboration, mostly among centers in the US. Latin America, as I mentioned, has been the fastest growing region for Agile Learning Centers. They're very active. And Europe, there have been little projects and some attempts to cohere them. But this webinar series and the Agile for Collaboration project, I think has a lot of potential to kind of catalyze a regional network for you all that like is adapted to your context. And Lily's going to talk more about like what's been going on there and what that looks like and what seems possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. It has been actually an honor for me to meet Abby back in 2016. I'm a computer science engineer, so for me, the Agile world was actually very popular. And at that time, my kids were going to a Sudbury school, my two kids. So it's purely democratic education. I don't know who is familiar in the group or with democratic education, but that is what my kids were doing. And certain things were like, when I saw the Agile Learning Centers, it just made sense for me. Like, oh, this can be a little bit better by using this. Like it's still self-directed education, but a bit more supported, I would say. And like the learning process or the individual process is more supported, and I love it. For me, it made sense immediately. I fell in love and went to the United States, visited several centers and so on, and it started ever since to dream about supporting more this kind of schools in Europe. Seeing the difficulties actually of my own kids in the Sudbury school, because inspections are not always very nice. Not all the European countries we can have actually democratic educations in a recognized way. So several of the participants, if they come from EUDEC, they can actually tell these challenges that we experience. So for me personally, one of the dreams that I have for this project is to make even the governments aware that and like city like city networks of schools in the cities aware of this kind of approach to education, and that it actually works, that for already about 10 years, 15 years, there has been research showing that this works, and we don't allow it somehow. Anyway, and then we are here with this Agile for Collaboration project and with fantastic partners, ProWork, the School of Riso, K8, we see here Oulton and yes. We have also Juan somewhere. So we have the University Francisco de Vitoria, and we are very happy really trying to support self-directed education in Europe, and more specifically this type of education, the agile, self-directed agile education. And now I would like just shortly to share what we are doing in the project. So I will share my screen so you know a little bit what we pretend to do and how you can support us and how we can actually together support this movement in Europe and to make it more feasible and more known. So as Abby said, we are using or this philosophy of Agile from software development, and specifically this is software it's a management of project management basically, or management of time that more specifically applied for the Agile Learning Centers, which is how to manage our time, our now and our tomorrow, and how to allocate or how to decide also not to allocate time for something like or allocate it actually to resting, for example, which is perfectly okay. So we have the Agile Manifesto from software, which in a very, very short summary, it is actually making that software in that or in that time, it was made in a very contradicting way because it didn't feel very human. Very humane. And now with this Agile Manifesto, or in that, the Agile Manifesto for software, actually what the group of developers wanted was to have a more humane way of working, like to feel better with each other, to connect better, to not to have tools as more important as people and things like that. So basically to have better communication, a better sense of connection and group coherence. And that translated actually to education. It becomes, for example, in the Agile Learning Centers, the intentional culture creation. So basically, what is the culture that we want and how we want to build it? If we want a specific way of doing things at our school, it is possible. We can just actually think about that result that we want and the steps before that we actually want to allow in our school or in our environment to potentially have that outcome. So we can design that culture. And exactly as in self-directed education, for the Agile Learning Centers and for our project, because we share the same values, learning is natural, happens all the time. People learn best by making their own choices. Children are people, so people can learn from, people and children can learn from the culture, the environment, and better than even the content that they are taught to. And accomplishment is achieved through cycles of intention, creation, reflection, and sharing. Basically, that part is also shared in the Agile project management. And then we have here the Agile learning, which is basically has these three components: the self-direction, so self-directed education. We also have the intentional culture creation. What is what we want in our culture? And then we have these management tools that can support that process. Here, I invite you actually to go at some point, I don't know if you did it or not, to agileforcollaboration.eu. We are going to post there our materials, the materials that we are creating for the community, and also the objectives of the project and so on. So you can take more time. I will not bother you with this at the moment. Just to tell, for example, that the results that we designed to have to intentionally support the community, the European community, are the first one is a book that it's already out there. So if you visit this results number 1, you can already read the handbook that we have created. It will be in several languages. For now, we only have it in English, but in the few days, we will be publishing also Romanian, German, French, Spanish, Romanian, and Dutch. And so here we have you can download it. It's very heavy, but at the same time, it is also a bit difficult to see it at the moment in the flip. Okay, maybe it's taking time because of my network. And okay, here it is. So we have here the book that would be super nice that you read it. And so we explain there what self-directed education is. Of course, for people from EUDEC, this will be really super easy to follow. But then there are the other parts of Agile, the Agile learning centers that maybe are not exactly known by EUDEC or by everyone. So it will be interesting in any case to read it. And then at the end, we also have a chapter about cultures of collaboration and also about research. And the one of cultures of collaboration, I'm happy to put in even that we put it in even for the Agile Learning Centers itself. Like it's, and sometimes we might go so much into being self-directed that we are just like being alone, like a solo player, but we are never alone. We are, together with many people in the world and in our communities. So then we put that touch of collaboration and culture of collaboration in this book, thanks to our colleagues from K8. And yeah, I invite you to read this book. And after this book, basically we will be, or we are already working on different kind of materials that we want, or we think that they will support the community, but we are still, in the moment to shape it. For example, the result here, number 2, is a collection of resources. You can think about the free-to-play book from Peter Gray. That is one of the resources, right? So we have a collection of resources. It can be films, it can be YouTube, it can be a YouTube, it can be a book, it can be a podcast, and so on. So we will at some point soon put them online, but for sure, I'm pretty sure we will miss resources. So then in that, the community can be also very helpful and say, point out books that we can put into this database of resources. We will match it also with the Agile Learning Journey, which Abby has designed together with Ruben and with me, and it has been very nice. Anyway, I'm excited that this will come out at some point, but it's not ready yet. We are in that process, but for sure the community will be super helpful to point out materials that we can use and we can show to the community. We, from the Agile Learning Centers, we use also several boards, several Kanban boards, and then we will try to do some for children. Specifically, I love the one that is the Community Mastery Board, that is really to shape that community, the sense of community and what is the type of culture that we are building in our community. So that board helps us to kind of co-create that culture that we want. Then we have another board that we use. It's the Set the Week and Offerings and Requests. And I love it because it can be, I even imagine that it can serve, for example, the purpose of EUDEC, having an open agenda and letting people do offerings and requests and setting up the week for EUDEC. But specifically it will be designed for children, but I know we have like what we call in this type of projects transferable, like we can do something else also with it. Then we plan to have an open educational resource, a course. Potentially this will be using generally, and it's basically a course that will guide people in different learning pathways to learn some steps, let's say steps, even though we don't like to say that we can learn this in steps, but some kind of guide for people to understand Agile learning facilitation, self-directed education, and the tools that we might use. And then this meetup, this online meetup, is actually part of the online community, the peer-to-peer community. We would like to enable this. So we will be doing this every 2 months. We will be setting up this type of call We want to also include, for example, teachers at some point and invite you all to speak. So for a next call, it would be nice, for example, to have, I don't know, Marlena speaking and not me, and share stories of the community and things that we want to do in Europe and that maybe are difficult to do, or even have a session about all the challenges that we have, and have that conversation and see how we can enable, on one hand, this community, but on the other hand, a community that can bring us to do other things in the future, like other projects and so on. And for the community, we would like to have at some point a tool. It can be Slack, it can be, we haven't defined yet because we would like to actually hear you. And see how we can establish that conversation between all of us. And exactly on time. I still have 1 minute, but I'm really in time to say I'm very happy to have you here, and this is what we are planning to do in this project. And of course, other things that come in the way, we can think about future projects and design it and so on, and support this community to actually grow. I would like to pass my turn to Loredana to see how we can go forward in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Well, as you might have seen already in the chat, I put a little exercise that I would like us to do. We can do it also verbally, or you can write in the chat. So the exercise is called I like, I wish, I wonder. And I would like you to share with us what you like about this initiative, about the project, what you wish to see in the community, or what kind of materials you need for your activities. And I wonder, that means if you have a specific question for us. So I will open the floor for everyone who wants to start. Like I mentioned, you can just do it verbally, turn on your mic and camera, or in the chat.
Can you repeat, Lori? I wish, I like, and?
I wonder.
Okay.
I like, I wish, I wonder.
Perfect. I wonder how many people from EUDEC are here.
Anyone who wants to start?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, indeed, learning is natural and happens all the time. That's in this moment we are learning. Okay, I think that we have 5 participants from EUDEC, Valia. Yeah, follower of EUDEC. Okay, super nice.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I say, hi, I'm Marlena. I'm based in London. I'm home educating my son. I work as a facilitator for Children's Village. It's a space for home educated children, and we use self-directed learning, some of the democratic processes, but making sure that the minorities, or the ones that don't vote for something, are included as well, so that we provide something alternative for them if they don't like what the majority is going for. And I'm working also now on opening a space for children that are 10 plus, that are home educated, and their families, because there is lots that works well for young children, but when they turn 10, 11, their needs change, and they need things done differently than the younger kids. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to get funding for that. So I wish we all stay in touch, because I think, collaborative exchange of information, know-how, and experience is very valuable. I like the fact that you put individuals and connections over processes, and kind of organizational structures, because I think this is something that goes wrong with learning these days, because very often institutions and organizations are more important than needs of kids in many schools, especially. And I think this is a very nice change, and I'm glad that you have put it kind of in motion. And I wonder about two things. First of all, how you get the funding and how to go about it, because I'm only starting. And also at the beginning, it was mentioned that there was a democratic free learning school, and there was this analysis of what worked, what didn't work. So I wonder what were the things that work, what were the things that didn't work, and yeah, how you got it forward to Agile learning.
Lily, do you want to go ahead to answer the first question? And I think Abby
I will answer what I can, Marlena. We are at the moment actually funded by the European Union, specifically the Erasmus Plus program. So this Agile for Collaboration is a program of 3 years. We already have the first year and we have the website and certain things, but actually the core of the community will start just now. So that's why this is actually the first community talk that we have. It's possible. We actually really dream to have more projects for Agile related, Agile self-directed education, also for education in nature and democratic practices at the schools. So we are open to collaborate with other partners and also to support in the process of, for example, if you want to partner with someone else here in the group, please do. So that's why we want this community to enable that people actually join each other and can go forward with projects. But the short answer is Erasmus Plus for us. And when we do activities for Agile learning, like we have the Agile learning talent in, we basically do activities like camp activities with kids, and we provide kind of like training also to adults, but in a very small manner. We don't have a school because in Belgium it's pretty difficult to have such a school, even though I see that it's possible. I haven't been like courageous enough to do it, but I know it can be possible. Yeah, but then the rest is a fee, let's say, that people pay for activities.
My question would be, because after Brexit, the UK is outside of the European Union, unfortunately. Can kind of we participate somehow, or is it or not? Is this funding open to countries outside of the European Union or not? And also the question to, I think, Abby, because you said you had funding. Is your funding also from European Union in the States, or do you have other sources of funding?
Yeah, so I run a school and I do the organization for the network. So the funding is different. The network funding comes from membership contributions from different projects, and those are sliding scale. It comes from kind of fundraising that we seek out, grants that we write, moments when we do kind of crowdsourcing, crowdfunding around specific projects, which we did last year to get Akila Richards' book, Raising Free People, translated and published in Spanish. And sometimes it comes from anonymous donors. Like we just had someone reach out and they gave us $40,000 to US dollars to distribute to projects within a set of parameters. And that happens, it used to be like every 2 years. It's now every year, sometimes twice a year, someone will do that. For the school, I write grants and we do fundraising campaigns. We are funded in part by tuition. The past few years have been kind of tricky with COVID because we were sliding scale tuition and we were depending really heavily on in-person fundraisers and trainings. That didn't work through COVID, obviously. And I've been speaking with some mentors recently about how to set up, because I heard you talking about starting a project in a center. I was encouraged to start like a partner for-profit organization that does consulting, and use that to like fund the nonprofit and the school. There's lots of other ways to do it. I know there's a center in the Pacific Northwest here that runs after school community programming, both for young people and for adults. And they rent out like their space for events in the evenings. There's also a center in North Carolina that has a co-working space on their property, and they use the co-working space funds to help kind of subsidize their school. So there's lots of different options.
And to kind of get donations and funding, I think you need to develop quite a lot of PR and marketing. Is that right? Or what things you need to do to attract people? Because of course people are not going to give money for something that they don't know. Is it also the fact that you have been there for 10 years? So what are kind of the elements that can make it more possible for to find someone that would be interested to fund a project?
Yeah, so I was an educator by training when I stepped into leadership of the school and administration, and I knew nothing about fundraising or nonprofits. And so I did a summer of going around and finding and interviewing people with a lot of experience in that world. And the main things I was told are that, with the exception of like the Erasmus Plus, like there seem to be entities in Europe, like official state entities that want to fund cool projects, which is just not the reality here, but that's really great for you all. The things I was told is that like people with money want to give. They want to know what's going to change people's lives. So you need to tell them a story about how their contribution is going to change people's lives, both abstractly in theory and then concretely, so like a couple specific examples. And if you're doing an event where you're asking for money, it's really helpful to have people whose lives have been changed by them having the chance to pursue what they're interested in, for example, or them having a supportive and adaptive community. Have those people speak, and use their own voices to tell their own stories. I've had luck talking just about the kids that I've seen and worked with over the years, and sometimes talking about, usually I'm talking to people who are parents, right? Even if they're funders. And so talking about how parents of students at my center report their relationships changing once they can go home, and instead of arguing with their kids about homework, they get to like make dinner and play and be people together. That's really impactful for a lot of people who are listening from outside this kind of education. So there's the storytelling. The other piece that I was told is that folks don't really give, sometimes they'll give funding to big ideas, but a lot of times your kind of one-on-one interactions, like people are going to give to you. They're going to be excited about you and the potential of your projects and ideas. And so they'll want to give to your project to support your idea. And so you, sometimes, especially among like with women, we erase ourselves in our storytelling, or we get really excited about the idea and focus there. And I was told that it's, and I've seen that it's helpful if you actually insert yourself in the story and you're like, here's how I came to this project and this conclusion, and this is why I'm working so hard to make it real. Here's how it impacts my life. Here's what I'm dreaming. And if you get them enrolled in that with you, they'll want to contribute from a place of wanting to be a collaborator, essentially. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very useful. Thank you very much. I have been taking notes. I don't want to kind of take all the questions someone has, but I have another question also kind of ownership of the space, because the environment impacts on the learning a lot. So at Children's Village, we are renting an adventure playground, which is on one hand really nice because it's a lovely space. But on the other hand, we don't have impact on many things, like the light has broken in our storage and it wasn't repaired for a long time. We couldn't use the cooker because they had problem with the electricity, the whole building. Yeah, and they went through managerial changes, and the staff was very unfriendly to us for some time. And also they kind of work for their community, which is based on school kids that come to adventure playground after hours, and kind of put us lawsuit. For example, when they need to do refurbishment at adventure playground, they invite people to repair it when we are there, you know. So there are lots of challenges to deal with when you are not in your space, even if it's an amazing space. You know, we cannot really adjust things to how we want, or if we did, we can put lots of effort and then they can terminate the contract. So, you know, my question is to anyone here that has thought or had the challenges or found the best thing is found the solutions of what type of spaces and how you find the spaces, and you know the question is about the space, the ownership versus rental. You know, like with COVID as well, lots of things here in the UK. We had so many amazing activities for home educated children, and then after COVID, lots of those things stopped. Schools, for example, opened and closed during the COVID. All our activities were not going on for the whole period. So for home educators, the impact was much stronger. Yeah. So yeah, any thoughts on spaces and what is important to have the right environment and to create the right environment for the kids? I don't know if I made my question, kind of long question, clear.
Oh, it's
Go Abby.
go ahead. I would,
yeah,
because I'm in Manhattan. Like, it's not really a transferable example.
Yeah,
So
and I don't know how transferable our approach in Ghent is, like in Belgium, but here we have spaces also from the government. Like you can count on buildings that are not used, and I wonder if that is the same situation in the UK. So we can, at least here in Belgium, we can just go to the city to the town hall and say, hey, I want to set up this activity, or I need a space for this. And they have kind of like a database of places that they don't use, or places that can be used as co-working spaces, you know, co-learning spaces. So I wonder if that is also a possibility. Sometimes also the rooms in the churches, that is also a possibility, at least here in Belgium, like the room that they use for, room in the churches, that is also a possibility, and they are very affordable. Often also some of them for free. So yeah, maybe you can have a look into that. I understand that from COVID, actually, we became very isolated as home educators. I also educated at home, and so I did Sudbury with the kids. Also, we did homeschooling. We have been like, being very self-directed in the process of the kids. So each year or each certain period, they actually, explore something different. Now they are in a Freinet school, actually. My girl is in a Freinet school, and my boy is in a school for kids with autism. So both of my kids have autism, and that is why they didn't fit exactly in the school system here in Belgium. But yeah, those are possibilities that you might explore.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I'm talking to the local government to get a space from them, but quite often here there are strings attached, so they want kind of, when they hear learning, they think school, and then they want kind of to do the measurements and how well the kids will do in the exams, which is not the case. For me as home educator and self-directed learning person is how each individual will become a happy individual capable of developing their lives. It's not about how well they will be doing at their exams. So it's totally different measurement and kind of yeah, this is another question, how do you make conversations? Because I so often when I talk about the future of learning, people just, I distinguish between schooling and education. So I'm very passionate about education and I'm not passionate about schooling. And I kind of, I'm about a trickle up, so start from needs of the kids and families and build it up. Schools are about trickle down, so starts from the needs of governments and statisticians and scientists that find an average child and try to kind of, government tells the head teachers tell the teachers, and teachers tell the kids what they should be learning. And I'm passionate about starting from the bottom, but when I start talking about it, people just really don't get it. They just always go towards the schooling and exams, and is your child good at reading and maths? Not is your child capable, good with social interaction, emotional intelligence, creativity, thinking outside of the box, and academic, of course, as well. But the academic is for people most important. This is what they care, and this is what they understand when they hear the word learning. They don't care much about other types of learning. Physical learning is not that important. So how do you make those conversations?
Whew, that's actually a long conversation, Abby? I mean, I would even say, no, 3, okay, go, Abby. How do you manage that conversation? And next, I would like that Henning he's raising his hand already for a while, so that we give him a chance to talk and to give a chance to others also to talk.
Yeah, I typically either, depending on how the person's coming to me, I take one of 3 approaches. I either talk about like the learning that that person is doing in their own life, and I look for examples of things that they're passionate about. Like I'm staying with friends right now, and one of the roommates is a landscape architect. That's not a thing he learned in K-12 school. That's not a passion he discovered there. And so taking that route, connecting people's understanding of learning to their experiences of learning as something like joyful, relevant, intrinsic to who they are. Sometimes that clicks for people and they're like, oh yeah, school was a separate experience. Sometimes I go the approach of talking about research on learning and research on resilience. Oh, my video is acting up. And if you're someone who's comfortable with that kind of information, kind of summarizing those points and then discussing how regular schooling isn't responsive to that research. Like we actually know what young people need and we're not doing it in these institutions. So my project is trying to find a way to move from what we know to give them what they need. And there's other projects that are also experimenting towards being better. The third tactic is a little bit heavier, but it's effective. And sometimes I just like remind people that like of their mortality, essentially, and of young people's mortality. And I'm like, the way our schooling is set up right now, for 13 years, for 10 months, 5 days a week, 6.5 to 8 hours a day, we're taking these young people's like chances to be alive and be fulfilled in the world and in relationship and saying, actually sit down and be quiet in this tiny box. And like, we're assuming that there's a world and a rich, fulfilling life waiting for them on the other side of that time. But that's a huge amount of time to have them like sit and stare at a wall. And like, they're not all gonna get a rich, fulfilling life on the other side. Like we don't all make it, or if we do, sometimes we have limited time on the other side. So I'm like, is that really what you want? Is that really the choice we're making, is to like tell young people that's how you're going to spend this giant chunk of your life? It's like that, a little heavier, but like also very effective.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Henning, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. My name is Henning. I am a co-founder of a democratic school in Berlin, in Germany. And I'm interested in what you have said, Liliana, about your kids, that you have 2 kids who are autistic. And you said something like the school system is not good for them, which I totally can understand. And you also, in the beginning, you said you took off your kids from a Sudbury school, from a democratic school. And maybe you can explain a little bit why, and has it something to do with autism, or is it independent of autism, other reasons? Maybe I'm interested in it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Sudbury worked for us for a while, but really especially actually for a healing process between traditional education and flourishing again. Like it has been something that I'm very grateful that my kids went to Sudbury. It's a moment when they really started to be more conscious of what they wanted and what they that they had a choice, actually. You know, that was like a moment of, wow, I have a choice, you know. And especially in the school system, and they're like speaking about education, which other kids don't have, practically speaking. Like in our network of parents who both the mother and the father work and very busy people, actually the kids are sent to school because they have to, right? But there's no choice for the children. Yeah. But going back to your question about autism, or whether it was a fit or not in Sudbury, I would say it was a fit in a way, and it was not a fit in another way. Just as the previous school for my boy was a fit actually for my daughter, which she is still doing for 4 years already, which has been the longest school she has ever been in. And for my boy, it was not the place. You know, he didn't feel good enough in that school. He felt disconnected and so on. Specifically for my boy, even though we believe a lot in freedom and the freedom of choice, which is very present in self-directed education, for him, it comes as something overwhelming in the sense that he just doesn't know what to choose. He's like kind of lost in the space with many options, but no option at the same time, which is a bit confusing for him. That is his specific way of being. He's right now at the contrary, actually, very contrary, the opposite of self-directed education. He's actually in a school that is very structured, and it is working amazing for him. It's really, you know, I mean, and you tell me, this self-directed education? No, not at all, really far from it. But in that place, he feels safe because instructions are very clear, right? Now, going to our let's say, topic of Agile Learning Centers, I see all the boards that we use in the Agile Learning Centers actually provide clarity that was not present in the Sudbury School. So even for next project, because I'm constantly ideating projects in my head, there is one project specifically for people with autism, kids with autism or disabilities, and those boards to make visually, to explain visually what we are agreeing in a certain environment, right? So that is actually something that I think that is would have been of a support for my kid, for my boy especially, in Sudbury, to have those boards. Look, your day looks more or less like this, but you have the chance to do it in a different way, you know. But for his type of mind, that would have been helpful. Now, for my daughter, it was a different story. She actually flourished more than my son in that school, which we didn't expect, because we moved our boy to Sudbury School thinking it will be helpful for him, but actually we saw more change and flourishing in daughter. But the challenge is that she was in an age for exams, the national commission, the exams for the national commission, and there was quite some stress at the school. So basically, like for her, it was like having the total responsibility of whether I pass or not pass this exam, and for her it just felt huge, which she still has in the same school that she's now, just that the steps are smaller. You know, it's like you have one presentation and that is already huge enough, but for her it was super terrible to have that huge exam on top of her. But it's particularly how we have to do it in Belgium, right? Because we have these exams from that you have to present when you are finishing primary school, and then you have also one exam extra in secondary education, and so they have by law to do that, and that was a huge weight for her. So she preferred actually to do it little by little in a more friendly school, and we let her experiment with that. But first we did the transition with homeschooling. So she was with me at home for a year and a half. We traveled, we did nice things. She worked with me. We have even one project that was purely done with her. So we have one European project that we kind of co-created with her. So it was amazing. But she's now going to a Freinet school. I dare to say that their autism played a bit of a role, but not necessarily. Like it could have been a fit also in other ways.
Thank you.
And we have a new person joining, and it's actually 6 o'clock. So I just wonder, how probably maybe just making a closure of our event, saying, okay, how you found it, like so, or less okay, or what things we could improve for the next time. And specifically, we want really to welcome you to, yeah, okay. Oh, Chrysanthi is also there. Hey, yeah. And we will have this conversation in 2 months, but we actually want also to have a platform. We haven't decided yet which one, but we want a point of conversation, that this connection that we are creating is not lost, and that actually we can co-create more. For example, Marlene with someone from EUDEC, or there are other projects in EUDEC also going on and things like that. So, yeah. That's all I would say for today. I'm very grateful to have you all here, and I hope this is the first, but not the last one, the last time we see each other.